All right, here now is the author of the brand new book, It's Liars, Leakers, Liberals, the Case Against the Anti-Trump Conspiracy. You see her every Saturday night, 9 Eastern, right here on Fox. Hello, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Anything going on in your life today?
You know, I'll tell you, Sean, I got an invitation to go on The View to talk about my new book, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals. And I accepted the invitation. I was happy to respond to their request. There was one segment which I thought was rather civil. I mean, they clearly are of a particular bent. But it was in the second segment that you just played, where I literally was thrown off the set. Whoopi Goldberg, basically said, I'm done. She pulled the plug off and walked away. But it didn't end there, Sean. And I think the sad part about all this is that, I said in the first segment, we need to start talking to each other. We need to start having a conversation. People who ostensibly hate each other. And the irony is that I said that about 2 minutes before she started. And I just felt that today was a microcosm of what is happening in America as the left suffers from this Trump derangement syndrome, shuts the right down, doesn't allow you to talk. She asked me a question and then yells at me, yells about Donald Trump, yells about, and when I try to answer, she continued to yell. But it didn't end there, Sean. What happened was I realized the segment was over. I got up. And I just started, I left the stage going downstairs and I saw her and I had to walk by her and I said, Whoopi, I fought for victims my whole life, something like that. And she started cursing at me.
What did she say? Tell everybody what she said without saying it.
She said,
blank you.
F you. F you. And I said, Whoopi, did you just say F you? I mean, she was right here. And then she said, get the F out of this building. And she yelled at me again, get the F out of this building. And I felt like I was less than dirt. I couldn't believe that I went there to have a conversation. I got thrown off the set, thrown out of the building. And as I walked away, she's yelling at me, get the F out of this building. Sean, it's sad. What these people have turned into is sad. What is happening? Well, Sean, I have co-hosted that show in the past. And during the break between the first and second segment, I looked over at Whoopi and I said, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. And I said, are you still doing something that we used to do together? And she said no. And then I turned to Ana Navarro from CNN. No one told me someone from CNN was going to be a host, which I thought was kind of fascinating.
I hope you said fake news.
And, I tried a conversation to have and all of a sudden, when we came back into the second block, it was all hell broke loose. And I have to tell you, Sean, we deserve better. We deserve better than to be berated because we may support the president.
Judge.
People are going to think this is normal. I wasn't just in a restaurant. I was invited to go there and speak. This is where people start to copy what other people are doing. And what Americans
It's getting dangerous out there.
Yeah.
It's getting dangerous for a lot of people. Everybody needs to take a deep breath.
Summit with Putin was a PR disaster that sparked outrage from both Democrats and Republicans, but he still has people in his corner like our next guest. Please welcome author of the new book, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Hi. You were on the short list to be a Supreme Court pick. Even Don Jr. tweeted, quote, that would be pretty awesome. Did the president ever speak to you about being on the Supreme Court?
Well, I speak to the president quite often, but there was no discussion about me being on the Supreme Court. And I think that's what he means by fake news. It's on the front page of a New York City, one of the biggest newspapers. Look, I've been a judge. I was an elected county judge. I mean, I love it. It's not the most exciting job in the world, but no.
Okay.
Well, what about the rumor that you've lobbied to take over Jeff Sessions' job as an attorney general? You said you just speak to the president all the time.
I do.
Have you spoken to him about that?
I've known the president for 30 years, and I've spoken to him quite a lot over the last 30 years.
But how
and
about
to be
that?
honest, look, we talk about a lot of things, and I actually...
But how about the attorney general?
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay.
What I'm trying to do when I go to the Oval Office or I speak to the president, I don't say anything different from what I say on my show Justice on Saturday nights. And that is that it is time that there are consequences for some of the things that are going on in Washington. Look, I've been a prosecutor, a judge, and a DA for 30 years. I've run for office 5 times. I believe in consequences. And when people violate the law, there needs to be consequences. And we're not seeing that in Washington. We're not seeing people made accountable for what they've done. So to answer your question directly, I have spoken to him, not about getting the job, no, but about having someone in that job. I don't care who it is, as long as it's an attorney general who's not in a closet hiding somewhere, who 24 hours after he took the job said, I'm not going to do anything with respect to the election. And that's all we've been talking about for a year and a half.
Would you take the job?
I haven't been offered the job.
Okay.
That's not a no.
That's not a no.
Well, let's talk a little about Russia. He met with Putin in Helsinki. A lot of folks, Democrats and Republicans, agree it was probably not the best idea because it kind of undermines our country. What do you think?
Not the best idea, Whoopi? Come on. Every president in the last 75 years has met with the head of the Kremlin. And I think the most important thing to take back from this meeting is the fact that Russia and the United States have more nuclear power than the rest of the world. It's important, and I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said the way, one of the ways to win is to make an enemy a friend. I'm not saying they should be friends, but what I'm saying is this. We come out of that meeting. We are arming the people in the Ukraine, $70 billion worth of arms, while Barack Obama stood by and let Russia go in. Let me finish.
I didn't
Crimea
say that.
Crimea was annexed, and as a result of the annexing of Crimea, we have thrown out Russian officials and nationalists. We've closed consulates. We are also in the United States making sure that with respect to Russia, if had Obama done anything about that red line, we wouldn't be...
He opens up an investigation into Russian collusion.
I came here... Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Okay, that but for Obama drawing the line in the red sand and doing nothing about a red line in the sand, we wouldn't have killed hundreds of Russians who were over there.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. So you're all for people meeting and having conversations. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Well, that's precedent.
Okay. Then how did you feel when Obama met with, I don't know, name somebody who... Castro or met
Raul
with...
Castro?
Yeah. Were you comfortable with that?
I have a problem with people talking. That's one of the things that we need now. We need people to talk. People who ostensibly hate each other. It's time we sat down and had
now.
Wait, can I just... One thing that jumped out at me is you said there should be consequences for laws. My understanding of the annexing of Crimea was that it was an international agreement that they could not go into Crimea. So those were consequences, and that means we won't sit down at a table. We will push back on you, Russia. And that's... So I'm just curious if that's...
And what did Barack Obama do?
But
it doesn't matter, Jeanine.
Barack Obama is no longer president. How much longer are we going to be rehashing
Everybody stop. Everybody's talking at one time. Everybody needs to just... We want to hear what everybody has to say. We want to hear what everybody has to say, so let's not talk over each other.
Reason why we're in the place that we are now.
President Obama opens up an investigation into Russian meddling, and this president fired James Comey, the person that was conducting the investigation. So what about that?
What about that? Okay, I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, one of the problems with meddling and this whole Russian investigation is there are 2 issues. Number one, was there meddling? Everybody agrees there was meddling. Donald Trump agrees there was meddling. Although Barack Obama said about a month before the election, there's no way anyone could meddle in the election. That can't be a rigged election.
If Mr. Trump is suggesting that there is a conspiracy theory that is being propagated across the country, including in places like Texas, where typically it's not Democrats who are in charge of voting booths. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense, and I don't think anybody would take that seriously.
But that your friend also was made aware of the meddling. He was
That's
aware.
not what I'm saying.
I know
The
that's not what you're saying, but I'm
Okay.
adding to what you're putting out.
Okay. So the second part of the Russian investigation is what I write my book about.
Yes.
And that is when individuals in the Department of Justice, in the FBI, get together and tee up a fake investigation with a fake dossier paid for by a woman running for president that the DOJ, the FBI take to a
Paid for by Republicans first.
No.
Yes.
It was paid for
Yes.
by the DNC and Hillary Clinton.
Paid for by the Republicans first. Paid for by the Republicans first.
Come on. I wonder what Republican that was. Do you know?
Paid for by Republicans
Been referred,
first.
actually. It was a donor to one of his primary
I'll
opponents.
finish this. So then they take it to a court, and the court then issues a warrant to spy on Americans. Now, if you're not offended by that, whether you're Republican or Democrat, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, and the evidence is made clear from the email, text messages from the top FBI counterintelligence guy. We're going to stop him. It's not going to happen. We'll get an insurance policy. The insurance policy is Russia collusion. 19 months later, we don't have anything. So when the president recognizes there's meddling, but you can't blame him for saying, you guys have made all of this up. You've been investigating me for 19 months. Come up with
Benghazi
something.
went on for over 3 years.
Four people died in Benghazi. And
100
therein lies
criminal
the
counts
difference.
is nothing.
It's nice to have people to not yell at me so much. We'll have more with Judge Jeanine Pirro when we come back.
There's
right
more.
now. Yeah.
I wrote the book because I'm not an ideologue. I mean, I have been in the crime business for over 3 decades, and I think I said that before. And I know a con when I see it. And I think that what has happened in the last, truly in the last campaign, and everybody needs to be concerned about that. Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. And when you start creating fake investigations, fake counterintelligence, you saw it yourself with Peter Strzok, who comes out and basically says he hates the president and he's going to take care of everything. They then go to a judge and get a warrant. That's a problem for me, and it should be a problem.
Can I ask you, you just said your warrant.
Look, I've been a judge. I've signed those things. The warrant was based on a fake document by an opposing candidate in a national presidential race. This is what happens in
not only
third world
based on that, and you
countries.
know that.
I do know. It is based
Jeanine, you
on
just
that.
said you're not an ideologue.
No, I'm not. I am in law enforcement.
Let me ask you this
and
question.
It's right and wrong.
Do you think Donald Trump embraces and embodies conservative ideology? Remember, he used to be have a different position on pro-choice. He's imposing tariffs. He's against globalism. Do you think he is an ideologue that is faithful to conservative policies?
You know, I'm not here to talk about what Donald Trump is and isn't.
But you talk about it. No, you got to answer the question.
I'm here to talk about the book. You want to talk about Donald Trump? You tell me what metric in this country is worse off. Unemployment is lower than it's been in 50 years. Minorities, Hispanics, African Americans have jobs.
Hate crimes are worse off.
Wait a minute. The GDP under Obama was barely 1. We're going up to 4. So you want to talk about hate crime?
I'll tell you about a
fought
metric.
for a law for hate crime.
I also think it's important, as we said, 89% of the Republican Party still supports him. He still has huge popularity in the country. And if Democrats don't get their you-know-what together, he's certainly going to get reelected.
Here's my question for you. Here's my question for you, because you talk about
I am not, Judge.
Nobody is.
Oh, yeah.
Did you just point at me?
Yes.
Listen, I don't have Trump derangement. Let me tell you what I have.
Okay.
I have I'm tired of people starting a conversation with Mexicans or liars and rapists. I'm tired of people starting a conversation about this country. Listen, I'm 62 years old. There have been a lot of people in office that I didn't agree with, but I have never, ever seen anything like this. I've never seen anybody whip up such hate. I've never seen anybody be so dismissive.
Anti-Trump social justice warriors are planning events across America on the anniversary of the election, during which they will scream helplessly at the sky. And you thought we'd seen the last of the autistic screeching. Now we get to enjoy it all over again. The biggest event will be in Boston, where thousands of people have indicated they'll be attending. Similar events will take place in Austin, Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago.
Come join us as we scream helplessly into the sky using words, moans, yells of choice to lament the shit show that is American politics.
They're even telling people who can't attend to just scream in their own backyards. But the attendees themselves are excited.
I intend to scream begging for help at the sky. This is awesome. I'll be screaming helplessly at the sky in California. Hard to believe this nightmare has lasted this long. We can have a yelling parade from the park to the Capitol. This needs to be global, please. What's the hashtag so we can get this trending? This is the greatest Facebook event I've ever seen.
And to illustrate how sensitive these snowflakes are, one of them got triggered by the fact that the organisers chose to illustrate the Facebook event page with a picture of white men.
Why is the cover picture seemingly a bunch of white men screaming?
Who cares?
It's 2017. If you don't understand that representation matters, then you are part of the problem.
They even identified with the screaming woman who became a living meme after the inauguration.
Shiro.
Totally feeling that like every day.
So we're nearly a year after the election and still, all the left has in terms of a counter-argument is to call everyone Nazis and engage in public temper tantrums where they yell into empty space like deranged mental asylum escapees.
I literally am gonna die. I need an ambulance. I can't believe.
Yeah, good luck attracting voters with that platform.
Clearly you don't watch the show, so you don't know that I don't suffer from that. What I suffer from is the inability to figure out how to fix this. That's my issue. But one of the things that you talk about a lot, and I'm curious about it, is the deep state. How long has the deep state been there, and who's running it?
Well, I want to answer your question because you had
you a question.
You had your opening statement, which was how horrible it is that Donald Trump is talking about all of these people.
Sorry,
you know what?
that's
I think
what you
it's
said.
horrible.
You said,
Whoopi, you know
you
what's
said
horrible?
that
when
it
people
was,
who
it's
shouldn't
okay.
be here end up murdering the children of American citizens.
You know what's horrible?
What's horrible
when the president
is
of the United States whips up people to beat the hell out of people.
No.
Say goodbye.
Let me go. I'm done.
Thank you to Judge Jeanine Pirro. Her book, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, is out now. We will be right back.
So, welcome back. So you saw me do something I very rarely do. I very rarely lose my cool, and I'm not proud of it. I don't like it. But I also don't like being accused of being hysterical, because that's one of the things I try not to be on this show.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I just really wanted to know right now, do you regret anything that happened or what went down today at The View?
Look, I don't mind 4 against 1. I can handle it. But I don't like being mistreated by people who invite you to have a discussion and then treat you like you're less than human.
What message do you have for Whoopi after she kicked you out?
I don't have a message for Whoopi. I tried to talk to her. She didn't want to listen.